Hello my friends, this is Sylvie Curry, Lady of Q, and I'm in my kitchen. Once again, have you ever been in a grocery store in the meat section, or butcher shop, or your big box store, trying to select a steak to eat for your family? And you wanted to know which one was the best, but you've got all this red meat out there and it's like, which one? What a dilemma. The reason I thought about this is yesterday I was in my local Costco and I was going through all the little packages of ribeyes looking for what I was going to purchase. I looked at some of the prime and I looked at some of the choice. And I couldn't make up my mind what I was going to get. And even though we're supposed to be socially distancing, this lady came up beside me and says, "How do you pick?" And out of my mouth, I just started babbling off how I pick. And I'm going to share that with you today. Let's look at some ribeyes. As I was speaking with this lady regarding how I choose a steak, and specifically ribeye, one of the things that I told her is that I usually look at what's in the case for the primes and what's in the case for the choice steaks. And sometimes you'll find that the choice steaks look much better than some of the prime as far as marbling. So I pointed out to her that you look for this fat, this intertwined within the skin. And these are choice steaks, these aren't prime. The other thing that I relate to her is that the ribeye comes from what is most known as the prime rib. And what they do is just take that whole prime rib and slice it into individual steaks. There's some sections of that prime rib which are better than others. And actually I can go through these and point that out to you. I don't think that these came from the same cow, but it still shows what I'm trying to reflect. On the ribeye, there's an area called the spinalis, or the ribeye cap. Ribeye cap, that's ribeye cap. And that's a teeny weeny ribeye cap. So we know that this steak on this side came from the lower portion of that prime rib. And that the ones that had the larger spinalis came from the midsection. So you want to get one that has a lot of the spinalis because that's part of the ribeye is the most tender. It has the most flavor. The section that is on one side of the cow, and forgive me if I don't know the term that's used, I think it's called the chuck side, but don't quote me on that, that the spinalis is very large. This is the ribeye, and this is a sort of a minor spinalis or cap. So in choice-wise, this would probably be the better steak to get because you're going to get more of that ribeye cap. And even though people think that the actually eye of the rib is the best part, it's actually the spinalis. Now you can tell which ones are the best because you look at this one, you say, well, it's got a nice spinalis, but it's got a lot of fat. But what you find out is when you're cutting slices on a prime rib to get your steaks, you're going to have the cuts that are more in the middle section are going to have the least amount of fat in there, the largest spinalis, and may have this minor rib cap. And then you go further and this fat, you get more and more fat. This one still has an eye and it still has that minor section with a very big cap. This one is going further down to the bottom of that prime rib and you see that you get a lot more fat, a lot bigger rib eye, and though you have a rib eye cap on here, it's not as large surface area wise as these two. In addition, I want you to note that you start getting what's in here is like the grizzly part, and that's not good eats. Whereas on the other two, these two, you don't have this grizzly section. On this part that's from the lower part of that prime rib, you've got a huge rib eye, hardly any cap, and a lot of gristle. And I'm sure that when they were packing this in the butcher section, they put in some of the better parts and then some of the less parts to even it out. So when you're buying packaging like that, you don't have a choice. The alternative is to go and buy the whole big prime rib roast, boneless, and do your own cuts, then you know exactly where you are on that rib roast, and you know which cuts are going to be the best. However, I wasn't interested in spending $150, $160 yesterday, so I just went with these. The other thing, why did I choose the choice over the prime? And that's because I looked at some of the primes that were in the case, and they didn't have as large a ribeye cap with a lot of this marbling. This has quite a bit for a choice, so I went with it. And that was my only factor. Had I saw something in the prime section look better, for a couple dollars more per pound, I would have gotten the prime. So that's how I addressed the lady asking me, how do I choose? I know she was sorry she asked me the question because I just kept on babbling on and on and on. One of the other things I pointed out to her is that even though ribeyes come from the prime rib or rib roast section of the cow, they are not always prime. There's prime and there's prime. Prime would be very good marbling on a prime rib roast. This is a prime rib roast, and it has adequate marbling, but it's not prime. Hope that goes over well. Anyway, so let me just reiterate again. Spinalis ribeye cap, spinalis ribeye cap. Let me point that out better. This is spinalis, the ribeye cap. Spinalis ribeye cap. This one's ribeye cap, and this little section here is that ribeye cap. Ribeye, small. The further you go down that rib roast, the larger that eye gets, to the point of being larger here and then huge here. The other thing you can determine where you are on that rib roast as far as the best cuts is the amount of fat that's between the cap and the eye. So you have little fat here, a little bit more, a lot more. And this one, you don't have any because all you have is just the eye. You don't have the section that would have had the fat in it. In Steak Cooker Association, when they go to pick a steak, they have them all laid out on the table. And you pick what you want based upon some of the criteria I just went over with you. And sometimes you only have a few seconds, I think it's 30 seconds that you have to go in and look and see, okay, which one do you want? And a lot of times people pick based upon what it looks like. Now, even though I pointed out that this had the bigger cap on it, I'm thinking that maybe this one may be the better one because you still have some of that minor cap, a small ribeye. You don't want this one. And you definitely don't want this one. The other thing that's done is when they are judging these steaks in the Steak Cooker Association, they judge a couple of things. One of them being taste and texture, and the other one being appearance. So when they judge taste, they're going to cut across that ribeye, and they're going to have, if you point it to them right, they would have all just spinalis to choose from. And the same thing here. They cut across, they have primarily spinalis. They cut across on this one, you're getting ribeye, some spinalis, and some fat. And you may even get some of this cartilage or gristle type stuff that's coming through here. And actually it goes all the way from here all the way down. And this one, you get a whole lot more of that cartilage or chewy stuff, and they would cut across there and all you would get was just a rib eye. So you want to make sure that you pick a steak which has the most of the meat that you treasure, and that would be that has the most of the ribeye cap on it. So there it is, how I pick a ribeye steak. And I'm sure I'm going to be challenged on some of those points, but hey, that's the way I was taught. This is Sylvie Curry, Lady of Q, and I'm in my kitchen, and I'm just talking about picking ribeye steaks.